Obi-Wan Kenobi has gained a reputation in recent years as the man to go to when a Sith Lord needs to be taken care of. Starting his career as a Padawan, he defeated Darth Maul on Naboo after the assassin managed to kill his Jedi Master. And even when Maul returned, he failed time and time again to take down Kenobi until his inevitable end on Tatooine, again at the hand of the Jedi Master. Other enemies such as General Grievous, while not a Sith, still had the threat of one, and yet also fell to Kenobi's hand. The disfigurement of the powerful Lord Vader was also the handiwork of Obi-Wan, and last, but certainly not least, was the mutilation and humiliation of Asherad Het, who would later become the one Sith, Darth Krayt. Obi-Wan is a man with quite the reputation under his belt as one who can handle a Sith Lord. However, many mistakenly believe that he is the Sith killer in all of the lore, the greatest. But unfortunately, there is one Dark Lord of the Sith that Obi-Wan cannot ever hope to defeat and never did, and that man was Count Dooku. So join us today as we open a holocron and analyze exactly why Dooku is the single person, maybe besides Darth Sidious, that Obi-Wan could never defeat. For many people, the discourse surrounding the Kenobi vs Dooku matchup hinges on the fact that Anakin was able to beat Dooku, and Obi-Wan defeated Anakin. Therefore, he should be able to handle Darth Tyrannus if he can defeat the Chosen One. However, this is not the case. Star Wars does not follow the ABC power scaling logic when it comes to character matchups, in terms of their individual styles, force abilities, and psychological effects that one person has on the other. Duels can go in a number of different ways. While Obi-Wan can defeat Anakin, that's for an entirely different reason than him being more skilled or more powerful. In fact, the reason why his perpetual victories over his former Padawan are so impactful is actually because, by all accounts, Obi-Wan should not have been able to defeat Anakin at all. That's what makes this duel so compelling. His fight with Vader on Mustafar was a losing battle from the moment they ignited their lightsabers. Obi-Wan was always on the back foot, and his death was not an if, but a when. However, Obi-Wan snatched victory out of the jaws of defeat because he knew Anakin's lightsaber style better than anyone else. Even though his raw power was oppressive, Obi-Wan's familiarity with how Anakin fought kept him alive until the infamous high ground moment, where Obi-Wan used his knowledge of Anakin's arrogance against him. Dooku was almost always able to defeat Anakin throughout the Clone War, but each and every time they met, Anakin grew stronger and stronger, getting ever closer to defeating the Count. In their final two matchups, the one on Naboo and the one on Obadiah, Anakin clearly has Dooku on the back foot, and the Sith Lord is only able to get the upper hand due to his power in the dark side and his quick thinking. But by the time of their final confrontation on the Invisible Hand, Anakin had the advantage in raw power due to Dooku's advanced age. In the Revenge of the Sith novel, even before the duel, Dooku was complaining that he felt every day of his 83 years. He was not 100% when he fought Anakin, and he goaded Anakin into using the dark side, causing him to get beat down by this raw, overpowering strength. And all of this analysis is without taking into account the type of advantages of lightsaber forms they all use. Anakin's Gem So countered Dooku's Makashi, but Obi-Wan's Sarisu provided him with more survivability against Anakin. The key difference though with Obi-Wan is that he doesn't have raw power in the Force, not on the level of someone like Anakin or Dooku, but rather, he needed to rely on training and honing his skill. Obi-Wan versus Anakin was a battle of talent versus hard work, but unfortunately in the skill department, Dooku always has outclassed Kenobi. He was a man trained by Yoda directly, who studied the art of the blade ever since he could hold one. He had mastered Form 2 of lightsaber combat to a higher degree than anyone in history, anyone in the Jedi Order, and he was able to rival Dooku's skill in Form 4, who had at 10 times the lifespan and experience of the younger Dooku. Even Sidious, who placed little stock in lightsaber dueling, found himself concerned about Dooku's raw talent. Obi-Wan, while an undoubtedly amazing duelist, just didn't have that kind of experience, and never would. He trained in Ataru most of his life under Qui-Gon Jinn, who kept him in the basics of the form for nearly 6 years. Granted, this gave Obi-Wan a solid foundation in lightsaber combat that made learning other forms much easier for him. And it's notable that by the time he fought Dooku in the Clone Wars, he had only been training in Sarisu for around 3 years. While his skill with the form was admirable to the point of receiving accolades from the High Council, there is a massively huge gap in experience between Kenobi and Dooku. Dooku can surgically pick apart Obi-Wan's style in a matter of moments. Obi-Wan was taught by the two people that Dooku knew the best, Yoda and Qui-Gon. On Geonosis, he manhandled Obi-Wan's Ataru like it was less than nothing, downing Obi-Wan in exactly 32 seconds. This loss was so traumatic, and a complete loss, that Obi-Wan completely retooled his lightsaber form. Obi-Wan's power would then rise as the Clone Wars broke out, along with the rest of the Jedi. But he and Anakin saw a unique surge. The next time that Obi-Wan would meet Dooku in open combat would be on Obadiah, where he fought him alongside Anakin. At this moment, for whatever reason, Obi-Wan was not confident enough in Sarisu at first, and actually tried to engage Dooku with Makashi ever so briefly. This proved to be a horrible mistake, as Dooku easily fends off his own form, effortlessly keeping Obi-Wan away and even kicking him towards the edge. Obi-Wan then goes back to using Sarisu, but by now, Dooku has already won and has pinned him. From that point forward, Tyrannus expertly puts Anakin and Obi-Wan's synergy against them, forcing them to fight at their weakest. He relentlessly attacks Anakin, making him go on the defense where his form is weaker, and simultaneously, Dooku weaves and blocks Kenobi, forcing him to go on the attack where his form is weaker. We've talked about how Obi-Wan is an expert at Sarisu because he doesn't just defend, but he supplements it with offensive maneuvers, making it an extremely strong and a well-balanced style. However, Dooku has already proven that if Obi-Wan uses Ataru, he would basically be risking his life by playing into a trap. The only time Obi-Wan had a fair chance against Dooku was on the Invisible Hand. In the novel for Revenge of the Sith, Dooku was shocked and terrified of Obi-Wan's mastery of Form 3, as he hadn't seen it in its full glory up until that point, not just by Obi-Wan, but by anybody. He mentions how Obi-Wan spins his lightsaber in a defensive shell so bewilderingly fast that if Dooku attempted to attack, then he would be disarmed by the sheer speed of Obi-Wan's blade. But by this point, it was unfortunately too late. Dooku, while weak in his old age, had grown insurmountably strong with the dark side, so he overpowered Obi-Wan with the Force itself. First by pushing him back so that he could focus on Anakin, and second by lifting him up by the throat and taking him out of the fight entirely. Once Dooku realized Obi-Wan's blade skill was now a threat, he just didn't bother engaging him at the sword at all, at least not while Anakin was there bearing down on him. Now that we've actually dissected the forms, skills, and powers of Kenobi and Dooku though, let's talk about the most important part, the psychology of the two men. The real reason why Obi-Wan can never defeat Dooku is because Obi-Wan fears him more than any other person in the galaxy. One might think Obi-Wan is more afraid of Maul, but that's not the case. Obi-Wan still holds the swagger in their interactions due to the fact that he knows he has defeated Maul before. He is not as refined as Dooku is. Kenobi has never so much as come close to defeating Dooku at any point in any duel. Every time they engage, Obi-Wan is already intimidated and allowing self-doubt to seep in. Of everybody that Dooku fights, his Dunmok technique, the ability to penetrate one's mind and instill them with doubt and fear, was most perfectly utilized against Obi-Wan. And this all comes down to legacy. Dooku is basically Obi-Wan's grandfather. Obi-Wan respects the skills and wisdom of Yoda and Qui-Gon, and Dooku is the bridge and the gap between that legacy. This carries an immense amount of weight in Obi-Wan's mind. The one question that he thinks whenever they engage is, how can I defeat the student of the Grand Master, and the master of my own master? Beyond this, Obi-Wan is terrified of Dooku's power and skill. He was first traumatized by his and Anakin's mutilation on Geonosis. Whenever Obi-Wan visited the cursed Sith world of Zygula, the planet tortured him with memories of that moment over and over again, of memories of Dooku. He does his best to push past that fear, but it doesn't help that every time that he sees Dooku, the man is seeped deeper in the dark side, more monstrous and more cruel. In the Son of Dathomir comics, Dooku and Maul briefly team up against Sidious when Dooku is possessed, but during their plans, Obi-Wan, Tipley, Windu, and Aayla Secura all show up to stop them. Obi-Wan and Master Tipley briefly engage Dooku, who simply fends them off with Force Lightning, but then he uses the Force to easily tear through Tipley's Force shield, bringing her closer to him, and then gutting her with his lightsaber, all while Obi-Wan watches helplessly. In the next frame, we can see just how utterly mortified Obi-Wan is, as he is seen screaming Tipley's name before crying. He's not filled with rage, he's filled with fear. All in all, even if skill and raw talent were not a factor in this relationship, Obi-Wan is constantly distressed by the amount of fear and intimidation that he feels towards Dooku. This will always hinder his ability to fight properly. And that, in the end, is why Dooku is the one Sith Lord that Obi-Wan never bested, and why the man whose speciality is Sith Lords never conquered Darth Tyrannus. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on Dooku being the only individual that Obi-Wan never defeated in single combat? And why and how time and time again, despite Obi-Wan defeating Maul, Darth Vader, General Grievous, and Asajj Ventress, Dooku always being his foil? As always, my friends, I hope you've enjoyed this video as we documented the relationship and the fighting styles of Obi-Wan compared to the Count. Thank you for joining us today in our holocron opening, and as always, may the Force be with you.